Okay, welcome everyone. We'll just wait a moment. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon on this somewhat dreary day. I am going to give it maybe one more minute.
Hillary, I think you can go ahead and start.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm Hillary Hines. I'm the VP of Advocacy for NCJW St. Louis. And again, I wanted just to say a quick welcome. We are very excited to have David here to talk about good ways that we can support shopping and that industry in an ethical way. I am going to introduce Nicole and let her actually do the introduction for David. So Nicole, I will let you take it away.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nicole Gorofsky. I'm one of the chair people of the Lunch and Learn sessions here at NCJW. And today we have a great speaker for you. We have David Cook, who serves as the president for UFCW Local 655 Union. David joined the Local 655 in 1977 as a courtesy clerk for Kroger. In 1987, he began his career with Local 65 in the organizing department and has worked as a service representative prior to his current position. In addition to his duties with the local, he is a delegate to the Greater St. Louis Labor Council, trustee for the UFCW Local 665 Pension Fund, and UFCW Local 65 Health and Welfare Fund. So David is here to talk to us today about ethical shopping and supporting unions. Go ahead, David.
Great. Thank you all for having me. And I was talking to Jen yesterday, and this one quite honestly dropped off my radar. So I'm not quite as prepared as I'd like to be. But if you're talking about ethical shopping habits and what we can do, I should be able to talk about that for a period of time without any preparation. So we'll see how today goes. First of all, thank you for having me, and thank you for your concern on this issue. I think it's something that a lot of people don't think about is our shopping habits and the effects it have. So, the easy answer would be, you look at your good union employers, your Schnucks, your Deerbergs, your Straubs, and they're going to be paying union wages and providing union benefits, and they are not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but they're good partners. I just had an opportunity to see Todd Schnuck at a long-term employee retirement the other day, and he was talking about the relationship we built over the years. And I said, truly, Todd, today we have a disagreement every 3 years. And I said, and that disagreement comes around how much of my money I can get from you to give to my members, and you fight to keep as much of your money as you can. But short of there, we have a very good relationship that I want to see you grow, succeed, and flourish. And truly, when I look at my role as a labor leader, I don't look at it as adversarial to the employers that I do business with. I look at more of a partnership. I probably look as it more confrontational to those I don't do business with that are not what I would say good ethical employers. And let me give you an example of that. So Costco in St. Louis is not a union employer. Now they do have some union shops on the West Coast and the East Coast. But if you look at their business model, they have what I call a good worker-friendly business model, no matter where they operate. They have a grievance and arbitration process, whether they have a union contract or not. Would I like for those people to be members of Local 655? Absolutely. Is it essential for them to be members of Local 655 to be a good ethical employer? Absolutely not. Conversely, you can look at the Walmart model, Sam's Club model, right, where they absolutely believe first and foremost in the bottom line at all cost, it doesn't make any difference. You can look at others. I mean, gosh, I'm guilty of this, not to the degree that my wife is, but let's look at Amazon. Talk about a absolute ruthless, unethical employer. You have an individual there that is one of the richest individuals in the world, right? And it's not enough. If he paid his employees a little bit more, they could have a decent standard of living. And he talks about his charitable donations, and he's going to do this and he's going to do that. Well, Doesn't charity start at home? Shouldn't he start taking care of the employees that have made him rich rather than squashing their desires to speak as a voice collectively? And at the end of the day, that's where a lot of my problems come with what I call these unethical employers. It's at the end of the day, if you allow your employees, to speak with one voice and not try to hinder that, you don't have to agree on every topic, but we should all agree that every human has a right to speak their opinion without repercussions. And the Bezos and the moron from Tesla, those individuals, sorry about that, but they don't believe in that. They believe in, my friend gave me this analogy years ago, and take this from this because I think it's very, very valuable. Unfortunately, I believe in the free market. I live in America. I've grown up here. However, free market without any restrictions whatsoever is really nothing more than a game of Monopoly. That all you're trying to do is what? Get every piece of property there is. Unfortunately, when you look at the Bezos of the world and that, it's like you're the third richest person in the world, for example, but it's not good enough. And if you're the richest person, it's still not enough because somebody else has something. Until you own every piece of property there is and own everything in the world, there's a competition. I would submit that today's economy on ethical retail employers rivals that of the pre-depression area where you had the Rockefellers and the Pinterest and the others that had 5 or 6 families, had everything. I'm not sure we're not worse today than we were then. The other thing when you talk about ethical employers, and I fault myself, probably the ladies on this phone call or this Zoom, and all society, is not thinking about the effects of what we do and the effects it has on people. I'll give you an example. Where I have done Amazon shopping, I have never to this day used a self-checkout, not one time. I've never gone to a store and checked myself out. And it is becoming customary for people to do that. And what are we doing there? We're replacing workers. The employers, even my good schnook employers at Dearborn, are forcing people there by cutting back on the workforce. When you look at the rate of automation and artificial intelligence in the service sector and retail sector, it is progressing at an alarming and a scary rate. And it's my belief that if we don't start to check that somehow, I'm not sure what jobs are going to be left in the retail sector in 5 years or in 10 years. You can go to Imperial, Missouri right now, today. There is what they call a little convenience store gas station. West Market is what it's called. They have 1 employee. That's it. The only thing that person does is check for your ID if you're buying a pack of cigarettes, tobacco products, or liquor. Short of that, everything is automated, meaning you have to scan your Apple ID for their location before you can walk through what looks like subway gates to enter. When you pick up a Three Musketeers bar, it goes in your cart. If you put that Three Musketeers bar back where you got it, it comes off your cart. But if you drop it on the chips, it stays in your cart. They have taken a facility, a typical little Moto Mart or Quick Trip or whatever, probably has 35 to 40 employees, part-time, some full-time. This one has 4 employees. We've eliminated an entire workforce. When you look at what's happening in the retail industry as a whole, when you bring that technology in, it's like, where are these workers going to work in the future if we don't change the way we think about them as viable workers? I'm looking around the picture here, and there's some people of my age. There's a lot of you that aren't. But I absolutely remember the UAW, United Auto Workers, and the big 3 auto manufacturers fight of the late 70s of automation when they were going to robotics. There was an outcry from the public about displacing quality jobs to where the big 3 had to get with the UAW and actually work out an agreement that we're on the same page. We will agree to this automation under these parameters. But think back for those that look like me on this call to the outcry the public had back then. I remember it. I mean, the public was furious with Ford and GM and Chrysler that you're going to displace these quality workers. Contrastly, let's look at today. We are displacing tens of thousands of retail workers through self-checkout, through self-stock, through self-pricing, through self-whatever. Have you ever heard anybody say, what about those workers? What about those quality jobs? We're not doing that. I think we have an obligation as a society to start saying, wait a second, if you want to move to this level of automation, how are you going to secure a quality level of income for the workers that are still there? I would submit to you that as they move to this, because remember, once they buy that robot, it never calls in sick. They don't replace it. They don't pay workers' compensation on it. They don't pay unemployment. They don't pay earnings wages into the tax revenue base. It's a huge negative long-term effect on our entire society. So if you're going to want to take that step, how are we going to charge you to do that? UAW came up with a method back in the 70s. We're going to raise wages. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. These companies are getting by with this with nothing to their credit whatsoever. And the downside is, if they want to say, we're going to continue to pay people the same annual salary that we're paying them today, but we don't need as many workers. Therefore, let's go to a 30-hour work week or a 32-hour work week. More time off to spend with your family. The company's going to be just as profitable, and employees are going to live with a little more dignity. But unfortunately, today, we're not even having that conversation. We're not even talking about the effects of eliminating the retail workforce. Amazon, Bezos has done a wonderful job of making things extremely convenient. You click, you order, they drop it on your porch tomorrow. But think about the number of employees that are being eliminated because of that. And it's to me, when you talk about what does ethical shopping look like, it is making sure that we're supporting employers that believe in employees, and we believe in supporting employers that support employee rights, right? Their right to collectively bargain, their right to speak as one, the right to advocate for themselves. And unfortunately, we just don't have a lot of that out there today. So, by no means is Schnuck and Deerberg's perfect. I want to make clear. I mean, right now, I have a Deerberg store that has introduced 100% electronic pricing tags. So what does that mean? That they have just eliminated a worker from that store, because to keep price tags changed in a grocery store is about a 60-hour-a-week job. To change, ad prices go on, ad prices come off, prices go up, prices used to go down. They don't do that anymore. But just for that, it was 60 hours a week. They have now gone to a system in one of their stores as a trial. Trust me, when they do this, they don't take them back. Every single pricing item in the store is electronic. Now it's a matter of push a button, it changes the price, it changes it in the computer. We don't have to pay somebody to walk around and put those tags up. So, I don't have a good solution here. I have to be honest. I can tell you what the concerns I have are, but it's starting to voice our opinion, I think, as a society, that if you're going to displace a huge portion of the workforce that we have today, what does that look like for those workers? Where do they go? How do they sustain a decent standard of living for their families and for their children? I had a young man work for me down here years ago, and I appreciated his optimism, but I just don't think he is realistic. I said, does this automation scare you? He said, oh, it's wonderful. I said, really? You don't have a fear for the future? He said, no. He said, I truly believe that either my children or my grandchildren would never have to work a day of their life. And I said, how would they support themselves? He said, well, the robots and automation will take care of everything. It's like, I don't think that the Bezos of the world and the Musk of the world have any desire to give things to people for free. So once you get to that, how are people going to survive? So he was more optimistic about the good nature and the goodwill of individuals than I am. Maybe I've become a little old and cynical. So, like I said, the other thing I'd say is when you look at good ethical employers, a lot of what I would call the small independently owned generally have a good business model. When you look at like a Global Foods in Kirkwood, Missouri, they're not union. I sit on a couple of boards with Sean and some other people, but they're a good employer. They pay comparable wages. They listen to their customers and they listen to their employees. So when you get into the shopping in these small niche markets, a lot of times those small niche employers, they treat their people a lot better than any large business. The larger they are, the more saving a dime an hour makes a difference. So if you talk to a Global Food, what does saving a dime an hour mean? Well, it's just not that much, right? Yeah, it's a couple $100 a week, but is that really worth it? If you go to a Walmart or a Target or a Sam's and say, you can save a dime an hour, it's like, my God, you're using so many hours per week across the country. Whatever we can do to save that dime is worth it to us. So do you have thoughts or questions or comments on what I've talked about? So I'd welcome, yes, Kay.
Well, I keep seeing all these fast food restaurants closing because they don't have any employees. They say they can't get anybody to work, and I hear that from some of the other places where they can't get like stock people to work. So I don't understand, like, where are all these people? I mean, there's jobs there, but where are the people coming to do those jobs? They're not doing those jobs. So then these people are saying, well, we have to go to automation. We have to go to something else where we have less employees. So I don't understand how we balance that.
So I think that's an absolute great point. I would tell you that part of the reason why you don't have people applying at that, because we still have unemployment is not out of control right now. However, what's not being tracked is people that just aren't wanting to work, right? And why are they not wanting to work? Because the wages don't merit them applying at those workplaces. I would submit to you that if the wage rates were more a real standard of living wage rate, people would be willing to do that. I'll give you a little scenario, right? So I started at Kroger in 1977 or 8 or whatever it was. I was making $3.13 an hour. If you ran the math on that today, that was as a bagger. I didn't stock anything. I didn't check anything. I just pushed carts and put groceries in a bag. You run the math on that today, and that would be a starting wage north of $15 an hour. Oh, by the way, that had full benefits, meaning health and welfare and pension. I would believe that if you told those young workers today that I'm going to pay you $15 an hour with benefits, or I'm going to pay you $20 an hour, $22 an hour without benefits, you have more people willing to show up and go to work. As long as they're holding those wages down, what they're doing is they're getting people now to apply, and then they're justifying the automation, because now they can justify, I can't get a worker, so it's okay for me to automate. And quite honestly, to get the sentiment that Kay has, which I get, we have to have services. So if they have to automate to provide those services, it's acceptable. I still put the crux of this back on those employers that if you paid a living wage and provided a reasonable benefit, you'd have a fuller workforce. That's my thought on that. I think Melissa has her hand up.
Hey, David, nice to see you. I had a question, but then while you were just talking, I actually had a thought. So what you were just describing about paying them a fair wage is very similar, unfortunately, to exactly what's going on in our legislature with education. And so the similarity just struck me as you were describing it. My question though was, because as I was thinking before what you were talking about, so let's just play the game that, automation is to some extent inevitable. How can we come up with something better? Like, I love your suggestion of like keeping the salary the same and cutting the hours, because I think that's fantastic. But in some ways, it almost reminds me of like the coal industry, where we have coal workers who have been doing this job for so long, and we almost need like a new kind of job in a new way with some training so that people can still work at something meaningful that is, I don't know what society is doing. And I'm not saying we should do that. I'm just saying, is that part of the solution?
Yeah, I don't. I think that has to be part of the solution, and I don't pretend to be talking to you today saying, here is the solution. I know the road we're going down is broke. But I don't disagree with you that there's going to be automation. Employers have to be able to automate. Society needs to automate, right? Or we'd still be riding on horses if we didn't allow for automation. But how do we get the elites to come to the table and bargain in good faith with society that this is what our society should look like, right?
Right. And I think the other piece to that too is, I mean, I don't know this with any quantitative knowledge, but it would seem to me that with as much automation of self-checkout, there has to be higher stealing. So there's a loss to there has to be a loss to companies by automating. And you go to like a Target, or you go to any of the, like Walmart, which is like practically completely automated, and you've got a person that's supposed to be there to help like 12 lanes, which they can't possibly do. I was at either Schnucks or Deerberg's the other day, Deerberg's, and I had gone through the checkout because the dog was in the car and I didn't want to wait too long. I know, sorry. And I then needed help because the bag of lettuce wouldn't scan, and I had like a whole bunch of cases of soda. And so I needed the person anyway. It feels like every time I use self-checkout, I need the person anyway. So it's fine. Like, I don't mind doing the self-checkout if that person is there per lane, like they would have been. And then you also lose the bagger and someone to help you if you've got too much stuff. So it's really more than just that one. Sorry, I'm on a tangent.
You're okay. No, you're good. I would submit to you that what you see today is phase one of that development. So I don't know if you're aware, but there's actual microchips available that they can chip products with right now.
Yes.
That automatically, when it goes in your card, it rings up. The problem with those is they cost about, I think today they're at like 2.5 cents per microchip to develop. Everything I've heard from the industry is that has to get south of a penny or south of 0.8 cents per chip to make it affordable. Either that technology is going to continue to develop and they're going to have that ability on the theft side, right? Or they're going to do some type of weight-based, like that market I told you there. So this is truly just step one of automation. This industry has continued to automate at record paces. I truly believe it's a matter of 4 or 5 years. And on the dry goods side, when I say dry goods, I mean the canned goods, the paper products, the all that. I think that you're going to see that become 100% automated. You won't have people stocking that. You have robotics doing that because they can program a computer and a robot to do that. I think the fresh side of the stores are going to continue to remain viable. I think there's a big part of the population, old people like me, that want to squeeze the apple and the orange and look at the meat that they're buying. But really, when it's a can of Schnuck green beans or Del Monte green beans, it's a can of green beans. So I think that's just step one. And I have no idea how bad their theft is, but I don't think it's as bad as you would think it would be. They have cameras in all those locations. They are constantly watching. They do a pretty good job of identifying those individuals and then alerting that store and sister stores that here's a person when you come in to watch for it. And it's uncanny how sophisticated they've become with that. So
Well, that's good to hear.
yeah. I got a hand of Diana. Did I have another hand or not? Question?
No, thanks. I pushed that by
Oh,
accident.
not a problem. Not a problem.
I actually have a quick question while you're on the topic of dry goods and canned goods. Are there certain companies that are more ethical, Del Monte versus Heinz or whomever, that you could recommend that people pay close attention to those
Yes,
things?
sir.
Because oftentimes, it's maybe we see what's on sale or what's cheaper.
Yeah, and that varies. But let me tell you, Del Monte is generally a pretty good employer, has a lot of union contracts. Heinz has a lot of union contracts. And just because they have a union contract doesn't mean they're good, but generally speaking, if they have a union contract, there are thresholds that they're paying benefits, right? They're providing more times than not a decent standard of living. So those are two off the top of my head. I would tell you what I would do is I would get with my communications person, because I know my international has a link of good employers. And not only, I mean, actually taking it down to the nuances of Del Monte green beans or Del Monte this, they break it down pretty far. Let me get with Collins off today. I will put on my website a link to find good food products that you'll be able to access. I should have done that already. That's a great question. Thank you for that. I'm gonna make a quick note here.
It just kind of popped in my head when you were talking about how that's going automated, and those are things we don't tend to even think about. And, sometimes it's just what the picture on the can looks like that, especially for non-cooks like me, if the green beans look good, I'm like, okay, that works.
Yeah.
So,
Yep, absolutely.
and I imagine that goes for, and, there's a long history of farmers unions and obviously, and can you elaborate on how that's continued on today?
Yeah, so actually the farm workers have done a really good job with an unfriendly political climate. How's that? Because they're considered migrant workers and farm workers in particular, their rights to unionization are greatly diminished. They're not covered by the National Labor Relations Board. But the farm workers have been able to build enough support that the owners of some of these big farms are forced to bargain in good faith with them, even though they're not covered by the law. Just through, if I'm gonna withhold my services, you have to deal with me whether the law says so or not. So they've done a pretty good job. The laws are truly stacked against. I'll give you an example. You may have seen that we've actually had some interest in the cannabis dispensary facilities here locally. We've won a couple of elections. We're starting the bargaining process. There's actually a processing facility just north, I want to say, of Columbia, Missouri. Large location, 390 employees. We've started talking to them, and the goofy way the laws of our country is that if you're processing the product, you're covered by the law and you can unionize. However, if you're picking the leaves or the buds off the product or taking care, that is considered agricultural, and you have no rights to unionize under the National Labor Relations Board. It's really a goofy, quirky situation. So now the employer can recognize you, right? So our goal is to get enough strength that we can do what the farm workers have done. But the farm workers, getting back to your original question, they don't have a life of leisure. I want to be clear, but their standard of living has actually gotten much better in the past 15 years. They have actually started to make some inroads to have a decent living wage. Not where Canada's at yet. Let me say that. Canada's farm workers have passed by ours. They have full rights to representation. My sister local's up there. So they have done a great job of unionizing them. So somebody's got a sleeping union dog there, very proud union dog. I have a bunch of proud union dogs. How's that? I'm a German Shepherd guy. My wife converted me from a lab person to a German Shepherd. So, and they're all union friendly. So, are there other questions or comments? And I apologize. I know I'm not near the length of time, so I'm hoping we can have some open dialogue and you can shoot me some questions or comments.
So how do we decide? How do you find out what are good employees and what are bad? I mean, you want to shop at some place that, like you say, to be a good shopper and be pro people. How do we find out what's good and bad? Is there a website we can go to?
Well, the websites I'm going to have are going to be those that are telling you if they're union or not. And that's not really fair, because you don't have to be union to be a good employer. I'll take Shuck's Boots, for example, small retailer, right? Not unionized, yet everything I've ever heard when I've talked to their employees, good employer. They don't need a union. Their employer listens to them. So I don't know I don't know where you get that information, Kay, but I will make a note on that. How do you define, A, what are you doing to define a good employer? And B, is there a way to produce that list irrespective of their union position? How's that?
I mean, I like to be a good shopper too. And so I remember years ago, we used to say, let's go boycott this person or that person because they weren't doing something right. I remember with the farmers union, when we'd say, we're not going to buy this product because they're not fair to the workers. And so we would boycott, and then we had some say so. I don't know if that's even effective anymore.
I don't know if it is either. Because I remember those too. I was working in produce back in the day when it was a boycott on grapes. And I mean, I'm telling you, working in the produce department at Kroger, when that happened, we didn't sell grapes. I mean, I'm not gonna say we didn't sell any, but we weren't selling grapes the way we were supposed to. And that had an effect on those farmers that got them to the table. It would certainly seem to me, and I've not heard of a good, effective boycott in recent decades, quite honestly, between you and I. You would think in today's world of mass technology that it would be easier to have a sustained boycott and a quick boycott than in the old days. I mean, heck, in the old days, we had to stand in front of a store and leaflet to give you the information, right? Now you've got Facebook and everything else in the world that you can do. So so I was supposed to educate you ladies, and you're giving me a list of things I need to get on the stick and get done. How's that?
But you did a great job because you opened our eyes to some things too.
Good.
Thank you.
Other thoughts or comments?
I had a couple of questions or comments. I
Yep.
don't know. I'm just thinking about similar to the automation within the retail and service industries. You mentioned buying on Amazon, and it's not even just buying on Amazon. I mean, similar to automation, I think online shopping is here to stay. Most people, particularly the younger generations, prefer to shop online. So I'm just also curious, like, again, no solution, but what does that mean for the retail industry? Is it, again, a shift of all those employees to a different industry? I don't know, but my husband has been saying for years, malls are dead, retail is dead. And so, I mean, it's just another, link in that chain of jobs being taken away, the online shopping. And then my other question or thought was, you've mentioned several local grocery stores, the Schnucks, Deerbergs. So we've mentioned Amazon. So I would say you would not support shopping at Whole Foods, given it's now owned by Amazon. And I just wondered if you had any information on Trader Joe's as a grocery store, because I know not, like, I have this good image of Trader Joe's. I like to shop there, but I know nothing in truth about, their situation as an employer. So I'm just curious if you have any.
So to date, they have not successfully unionized and bargained a contract across the country. Having said that, there are a couple of locations on the East Coast and the West Coast where it has been kind of this Amazon, Starbucks Workers United group getting together and have had successful elections. I will tell you, my understanding is there's a group of workers in a St. Louis location that are self-organizing, that are having conversations with me about their desire to actually partner with me. So my ability to give you good information today on how they're going to be to deal with would not be fair. I think that maybe in 3 to 6 months, when we get a little bit further down the road, I'll be able to give a better evaluation that, listen, they fought the union, which I disagree with, but at the end of the day, they recognize their employees' rights and they sat down and bargained, right? And that probably would give me a better idea on how to do that. I do want to talk a little bit about the online shopping as a whole, because you're right. I talked about Amazon, but it's really this whole online. And when your husband said that malls are dead, I take it a step further. Maybe not today, but I think in 5 or 10 years, brick and mortar are all but done. I think there are going to be exceptions to that. And I think that's going to be your fresh departments in those stores, your delis, your meats, your seafoods, your produce, your floral shops, your bakeries, right? Where you want to go in and touch and feel that. But I think brick and mortar has a challenge in front of it. I think what we ought to be talking about is, so if you're going to go to this online shopping, what happens to the tax revenue? Should we be looking to tax you as an employer or as a business at a different level? Because your revenue is not going to change, your sales revenue is not going to change, but you're probably not paying the taxes you should. Should you not be getting hit at a higher level to make sure that we don't have a deficiency in our revenue that's being paid into all the different entities today because you don't have the employee base? So I'm not sure society shouldn't be looking that as you automate and you downsize the number of employees, there ought to be something to make sure it doesn't have a negative effect on society, meaning the tax revenue as a whole. And yes, we'll go back to what you said, and that is, while that's happening, there needs to be a thought process of where do these current employees go to get a job that will give them a decent lifestyle, right? That also, let's keep in mind that they are capable of performing. So is there training involved that needs to take place? Because not everybody can do everything in the world. I can't be a brain surgeon. It doesn't make any difference. I'm never going to be a doctor or a nurse or a skilled practitioner like that. So you can't say, well, go get one of these skilled jobs. Are there other work entities out there that we could move that workforce to and train them, right?
David, do you know how much of a shift there either has been, is being, or will be, if we're talking about things like either Amazon or online shopping, or even like delivery from grocery stores, like, when you order online from Dearborg's and they deliver it. So what percentage of the workforce that maybe we are losing in the store have we shifted to servicing by delivery?
That is such new data. I don't trust anything I'm seeing,
Okay.
But I will give you a couple of things that I know has happened. So Kroger has actually now gone to where you're talking about a Dearborg Schnook delivery to your house, right? So you're thinking about that employee that's going in, doing your shopping, right? And then delivering it to your house. Kroger and these other companies are going to figure this out also, have now gone in Cincinnati, I want to say, but it may be a different city in Ohio, where they have actually built one big, massive warehouse. And it's robotics and it's automated and it's shopping as you're placing your order and it's dropping into a cart. So all you're doing now is having it delivered, and you've eliminated, once again, the person stocking it on a shelf, the person shopping on your behalf, the checker, the whole 9 yards. So my understanding from my cohorts in Ohio where this is taking place is that has had a dramatic effect on the shopping habits of Kroger shoppers in that town, because I can now shop at Kroger without ever leaving my house, and their workforce has been, I don't want to say devastated, but it's taken a real hit. So I have to believe as that's going forward, you're going to see in the next 5 to 10 years, I'd be shocked if we don't lose over half of our workforce. That's my gut.
No, that makes sense. I mean, obviously I was picturing it the way it, and I don't even get delivery because I don't even think they deliver to where I live. So I can't get delivery. But even like, I know my aunt does it a lot. If it's cold out and she's older, and, she'll have them at least get the order ready, and then she goes curbside and someone brings it out to her and she can tip them and whatever, but someone is at least still doing a job that way, but
Right.
can't even think ahead to, okay, well, we could just automate that too.
And I don't know if you saw that the message down there in the chat, but and you're spot on that when she's talking about the brick and mortar, part of the reason is you're not paying taxes on the goods. And I'd submit that that's one thing that ought to be changed immediately. I mean, I don't want to pay more taxes, but we built a society built on this tax model. If we're going to eliminate the entire retail tax base because you do it online, we're going to have a lot of problems across the country. The rest of the country's roads are going to start looking like Missouri roads, and those are undrivable, in my opinion. So there ought to be some push that we tax anything being sold over the internet at the going rate for where you live, so that community, that county, city, state is not losing the revenue they were getting from the products being purchased for those residents. I think Cheryl has a question.
Well, let me just finish one thing, Cheryl. I was going to say, which is interesting because I have a little Etsy shop, and when I sell things on Etsy, it takes the money from, my sale and sends it to whatever state. And if it's within Missouri, it's on me to pay my Missouri tax. So it's funny how I have to do it with my little, like maybe I sell $2,000 a year worth of stuff, little shop, but they can't figure that out globally. Sorry, Cheryl, go ahead.
Nope.
Well, I was going to comment on that is that I do a lot of online shopping, and I do for most, I think, of the places I am paying Missouri sales tax, or maybe it's federal. I'm not sure. It just says tax.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's federal, some sort of federal tax, or if it's going to Missouri. My thought was that it was Missouri because sometimes, because I remember a number of years ago when in the earlier days, there was the talk about whether.
There's a debate in Jeff City on that a while back. I don't know if they landed on something there or not, across the state line or not, but I do remember there was a heavy debate in Jeff City about, do we tax online or not? I would submit that online ought to be just like you're at a brick and mortar.
I think so too. I mean, of course, when I first started shopping online, I didn't think so because it was a nice out from the tax, but I am pro-union. And so I do believe, and I am concerned about our tax base. So yeah, but the other point, of course, is that, throughout modern history, going back to the Industrial Revolution and on forward, there have been these transitions of models of business and industry, and somehow it takes time, but the workforce moves, it adjusts to the changes. And I think we may be in that transition because online has become, especially, I think the pandemic pushed it forward, that there's so much online shopping that we haven't seen the transition yet of what's going to happen to the workers who are now leaving those professions and where they will end up.
Cheryl, I agree 100%. I do get a little bit of the sky is falling. I get that. I've worked in this industry for 45 years. So when I look at how different it is, I get this phobia. I would agree with your analogy that historically, as technology has evolved, as we've become more sophisticated, to date, it has always worked out and workers have found a place to shift and take care of themselves. I guess I look at it as it's concerning for me, but I would not disagree with your analogy of what's happened in the past. I think that you're spot on. Marlene?
You may have answered the question and I may have missed it with all the conversation about Amazon and everything else. What about Trader Joe's? Are they a better employer than, let's say, the bigger stores, Dearborn, Schnucks?
I would say they're not better than Schnuck and Dearborn, and I don't think that's a close call. And I say that here's something that Schnuck and Dearborn's never get credit for. So you see their wages that they start at this and they cap here. The one thing I give my hometown unionized retailers credit for that nobody recognizes is, as we sit here today, they are paying between $5 and $6 an hour on every single hour for benefits. Those employees working at Schnuck and Dearborn have as good insurance as almost anybody in St. Louis. And this time of year, I get to go out and do retirements for people that have been in the industry for a while. As a rule, with the retirement that they've earned through those employers' contributions, if you've worked in that business for about 35 years and you're about 62 to 63 years old, you're going to retire making as much money as you did as an employee. That's not the case in most places, and that's not a Trader Joe's model. So if you look at Trader Joe's, they would pay slightly higher wages, but they don't have the benefits. They just don't provide that quality healthcare. I just hired, and I look at what my benefits used to be in this union 20 years ago, and I look at them now, it's like, man, have we taken a cut? But I just hired an administrator, high-level administrator for one of my benefit funds. This is a person that is, comes in at $100-something thousand a year, and it's like, oh, I've got to start her on Plan D. This is going to be terrible. She's never going to accept it. When I walk through the benefits and I outline Plan D, and I'm cringing because I'm thinking this is going to be terrible, she says, oh my God, your benefits are so wonderful. That's my 4th level. And then you go to C after a couple of years, and then B after a couple of years. And this person coming off the street of corporate America was like, you're D. And that's what every one of those employees at Schnuck and Dearborn's has, that or better. So that's the one thing you don't get with a Trader Joe's.
Thank you.
Diana, do you
Yeah.
mean to have a question?
Yes, I
Okay.
forgot what I did wrong the first time. One of the things that I've been hearing lately on the news and well, mainly on the news, is that there are many jobs open, but people that need work don't have the training to fill those positions. Can you speak to that at all?
I've not seen that in my industry. Let me say that. I do think there's some truth to that. And I think as we continue to automate, I think you're going to see more of that in my industry. Because you're going to stop looking for a person to put cans on the shelf and start looking for people that can deal with robotics and artificial intelligence. But I'll be honest, to date in my industry, it's not a matter of they don't have the trained workforce. It's, I'll be honest with you, it's that they're not paying a high enough wage. I mean, if my Schnuck and Dearborn's, and they're good employers, if their starting rate was $15 or $16 an hour and you had benefits day one, I would tell you, you're going to get workers to apply. People are going to go apply for a job where they can actually provide a decent level income for them and their family. So anything else? Wow, we actually almost went an hour. I didn't think that was going to happen at the beginning.
Well, I think this was fantastic, and I am never using self-checkout again. So I am very glad, even just that one little thing I think can make a difference. So I'm really thrilled about this, and I think that we all learned a lot today. I just wanted to thank you, Dave, for speaking with us. I know that this is an hour out of your day to do this out of the goodness of your heart. In honor of you speaking to us, we're going to make a donation to Jobs with Justice to thank you. Jobs with Justice is a wonderful organization that NCJW often partners with, and they advocate for workers. The other day they had a strike outside Hillside, I think it's Hillside Care center to aid workers who are working with assisted living facilities. You know, it really in every industry, we need to support workers. And that is why this is so important and so important for us to keep talking about this and just, you know, keep doing little things that can help.
I thank you so much for having me, and I thank you for your concern about ethical shopping habits. I mean, just to have a group of people that care is a huge step in the right direction. That it matters.
Yeah, it does. And I think this kind of sprang out from January's Human Trafficking Awareness Month. And a lot of times our focus is on sex trafficking, but labor trafficking is also a huge issue. And we know that unions have been instrumental in fighting. And, you know, we can, if we all work together, we can really do something. So, I mean, not to sound trite, but it's true. So yeah, again, thank you very much. Before we wrap up, just a quick reminder, we have a few events coming up. On February 1st, we have our Human Trafficking Lobby Day, and there's still room to join us. It is all day in Jefferson City. And if you are not signed up yet and want to join us, please do. We also have our Lunch and Learn next month will be with Sarah Fensky, who is, you might all know from St. Louis Public Radio, and she's going to talk about misinformation and the dangers of social media, that, you know, sometimes things get a little out of hand, and we can learn how to fight that as well. Marilyn, did you have something you needed to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, when you were talking about Human Trafficking Awareness Month, at Trader Joe's, they have a delicious fair trade coffee. So a plus for Trader Joe's.
Thank you. Well, thank you all so much. I am going to be sending out an evaluation in a few minutes. If you would be kind enough to fill that out, that would be wonderful. I'm sure, David, you will get excellent marks because you were an excellent speaker. And if you are not already signed up for our 5 Ways to Advocate, please do not hesitate to let me know. You can just reply to the email I send out, and I will be happy to sign you up. For those who don't know, that is our weekly e-blast that talks about, basically, I mean, it says what it is, 5 Ways to Advocate. Always has, you know, especially during legislative session, which is going on right now. But also, you know, any events coming up. We have a big conference coming up in March, basically navigating the system in uncertain times. And we would love for you to join us. And there's information in our 5 Ways to Advocate and on our website about that as well. Heather, do you have anything to add?
I think you covered it. Thanks everybody for attending, and thanks Dave. And if you get the list, we'll share them. We can share them on our website and with our membership and in 5 Ways to Advocate.
Yes, please do. And one more thing I forgot to add is that Sunday, Heather, I'm going to mute you because it's echoing. So Sunday we have an event at Share Emmett Congregation from 2 to 4, and it's called Abortion Stories. And it is it's a traveling exhibit that we brought into town with some coalition partners. And it's just basically about pre and post Roe, the landscape pre and post Roe. And we would love to have you there too. We're having a panel of speakers and obviously food. So if you haven't signed up, you do have to register, and I will put the link to register in the evaluation email as well. So thank you all, and stay warm today, and shop union and support our friends. So thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Take care.